Hi everyone. Welcome to part 3 of my set build video for I Hate Hamlet, a production of Shakespeare in the Vine. Today we're going to be discussing the building of flats and doorways for the set. Suppose that I need to actually describe to you what a flat is before I tell you how I build them. Let's go to the animatic.
A flat is basically an artificial wall. The front is a 4x8 sheet of plywood, usually 3/16 of an inch thick or even thinner, framed in the back with 1x4s or 1x6s. Those are nominal sizes. They're actually 3/4 of an inch by 3.5 inches, and then reinforced with braces at the corners and across the middles. These braces can be plywood, they can be 1/2 an inch thick or 1/8 of an inch thick. They are simply there to add a little bit of structure against racking. But with the plywood on front, racking really isn't that much of a problem. Our set has the landing and stairs set at 45 degrees. So we have to create an angled wall that fills in the gap from the landing to the actual physical wall. And here's how I'm going to build this flat. Angling a piece of 1x4 at 45 degrees along the long edge, attaching it to a frame that has cross members set at 2 feet apart, and that's critical, and then skinned with, again, the 3/16 inch plywood. And since this is going to be 10 feet tall, I have to make a 2-foot extension. The wood that I'm using had a lot of knots in it. It's not meant for this kind of work, so I had to cut out at 45 degrees notches where those knots were, get out as much of that material down to flat, and then, using my scrub plane, create a bevel down the full length at 45 degrees. It was all marked. I just had to plane until I met the marks. As long as the cross members are square on all their faces, except the 45-degree angle, of course, then that bend in the end of this plank is not going to be a problem. It'll square itself up. So here I am, planing and squaring up 2 of the cross members for the extension. Since the unit is going to be 24 inches across, I have to take back from 24 inches the width of one of these boards and then cut it off. And then I screw the unit together carefully. The one thing I don't want is what just happened, the screw poking through the outside edge of the 45. The most accepted method of putting flats together is with glue and either brad nails or long staples. We use screws here because frequently we have to alter the temporary masking flats like this 45-degree flat. And it's just easier for us to reuse the materials when they're screwed together rather than glued. Here's the small unit. It has small gussets for keeping it square, made out of scraps from the 45s that I've cut. I put them on the front because on the back it's rather difficult, not necessarily to attach them, but to attach the frame then to other things. So on the front. And here I am, again, truing up the front face. I'll call it the front edges of the cross members for the 8-foot piece. And yes, I'm using a low-angle block plane there because the grain was rising and confused all along these edges. Again, these 1x4s, these common boards, are not meant for visible work, and so I have to take extra precautions to make sure that they work. Then I cut them at a 45-degree angle, just like you saw with the 2-foot wide one.
It's at this point that I have to make a decision. The fastest way to do this job is to simply cut this piece off at that line and then screw them in, like you saw me do with the smaller piece. But the ideal way to do that is to cut this off 3/8 of an inch here and cut a cove. Let's just use this as a demonstrator. Cut a cove 3/4 of an inch wide here and 3/8 of an inch deep here to fit this into. Well, why would you do that? For the same reason you would do it when making a drawer or any other frame that helps keep this square. But it takes time. Now, fortunately, I have time, so that's what I'm going to do.
You can tell by the sweat on my face that I wasn't exactly thinking eloquently, calling these rebates and housing dados coves. And the sequence that I filmed where I cut them was lost. The camera that I was using apparently decided not to record. So now I simply have to cut the cross members, which are at 24 inches on the long edge, to match each housing dado and rebate, because as I was cutting them, some were a little bit deeper than others. I did not use a chisel to cut out most of these. I used a circular saw, and so there was some variance in how deep it was cutting. But it's a simple matter, really. Just place the cross member up against its unique housing dado, make a mark in the dado for a cut line, and then number the member so that it matches the individual housing dado. Now, eagle-eyed viewers will notice that there's a mistake right here, and I didn't notice it right away. Remember I said that the cross members are usually set at 24 inches apart, center on center. Well, that one's not 24 inches. It's 12 inches. And here I am, marking everything up, as if I'm actually going to be cutting it out for that housing dado. I set it in there and I mark it even. Silly me. And then I discover my mistake. I start making the next one, and I realize that I've run out of cross members. This doesn't go here. This goes at the end. Let me mark that up real quick. That one's number 6, even though it's technically number 5. And then in the slot that I was going to mark for number 4, I just glued in some wood. After checking each cross member for squareness, I began making the braces. For the center braces, the ones that go across the center board, I create a 3/4 inch gap. You can see it right there. It makes it easier to center the brace. And now on to doors. Doorway flats are very much like regular flats, except they're extra reinforced to prevent racking and wobbling. They're still based on the 4x8 sheet of plywood. Here we see one of our old doors, and it needs some repair. It's been used in multiple plays, has been repaired a number of times, and it has to be repaired correctly this time, especially since the last time we used it, it fell apart and we lost an entire foot. And here we have the landings and stairs. You've seen these before, but never together. The tape on the floor here is marking the front edge of our actual stage. And that is about where that wall is going to be relative to the rest of the landing. That's all for now. Please like if you like and leave a comment. But the load-in is coming very soon, and a lot of work's going to be happening between now and then. Until then, thank you for watching.